Greetings. Today, we'll calmly and clearly examine how plastic, originally created as a convenient and inexpensive solution, has become a ubiquitous and virtually inescapable companion of modern civilization, and why our society has become so deeply dependent on it. Plastic is more than just a material. It is the cultural code of the industrial and post-industrial eras, a symbol of progress, accessibility, and hygiene. Its history is a classic tale of unintended consequences, a material created to make life easier and preserve precious natural resources, spiraled out of control and began to shape the human environment, permeating water, soil, air, and living organisms. Today, plastic is found at the bottom of the Mariana Trench and in the Arctic ice, in the dust of city apartments, and in the blood of newborns. In this analysis, we will trace the logic of this expansion, from technological triumph to the recognition of a systemic trap, and attempt to understand why the path back is so difficult, while the path forward requires reconsidering the very foundations of our production and consumption. The triumph of plastic was no accident, but a logical outcome of the search for answers to the challenges of the industrial era, and its roots lie in the profound shortages and limitations of pre-industrial materials. Before its advent, humanity depended on the vagaries of nature and labor-intensive processing. Metals were expensive and energy-intensive to produce. Wood was flammable and subject to rot. Glass was brittle and natural rubber. Latex was geographically bound to hevea plantations and had unstable properties. The era of colonialism and the Industrial Revolution, with its explosive growth in population and demand, exacerbated the problem of raw material shortages and high prices. The need for a replacement for strategic materials, such as ivory for billiard balls, combs and keys, or tortoiseshell for eyeglass frames, was particularly pressing. This quest led to the first semi-synthetic materials. Parcasine was invented in 1856, and celluloid, a nitrocellulose and camphor-based polymer, was invented in 1869. These were the first steps, but the materials remained expensive, often flammable, and could not withstand mass production. A fundamental shift occurred at the beginning of the 20th century, with the transition from the processing of natural polymers, cellulose, rubber, to the complete synthesis of macromolecules from simple organic compounds, primarily from byproducts of coal distillation, and later, oil. A key figure in this shift was the Belgian-American chemist Leo Baekeland. In 1907, experimenting with phenol and formaldehyde, he synthesized Bakelite, the first fully synthetic thermosetting plastic. Its uniqueness lay in its irreversibility. After heating and molding, it became solid and did not melt. Bakelite ushered in the era of plastic as a structural material for electrical equipment, radios, and household appliances, ushering in the aesthetics of functionalism. However, the true breakthrough, transforming plastic from an elite material into a mass-market one, occurred during World War II and the post-war decades. The war became a powerful catalyst. It created an urgent need for lightweight, durable, corrosion-resistant substitutes for scarce strategic materials. Research initiated by military contracts led to technological breakthroughs. Polyethylene, discovered in 1933 in Great Britain, became critical for insulating radar cables. Nylon, introduced by DuPont in 1938 as a replacement for silk stockings, was immediately repurposed for the production of parachutes, ropes, and helmet linings. Polystyrene was used to make aircraft parts, and polyvinyl chloride was used to insulate wiring on ships. When the war ended, giant chemical companies with advanced technologies and established production facilities faced the question, what to do with this capacity? The answer was an aggressive conversion of military technologies to civilian use, coupled with aggressive marketing. Post-war society, thirsting for something new, hygienic, affordable, and modern, provided the perfect breeding ground. Plastic was promoted as the material of the future, a symbol of cleanliness, progress, and consumer democracy. It was incredibly inexpensive to produce, using petroleum refining waste as its raw material. It could be dyed any color, molded into any shape, and was lightweight and durable. Disposable plastic tableware eliminated the need to wash, polyethylene film kept food fresh, and PVC pipes were cheaper and more durable than metal ones. Thus, plastic became the material embodiment of the post-war economic miracle, offering a society weary of deprivation the illusion of limitless, hygienic, and affordable abundance. This illusion, reinforced by the power of the petrochemical industry and shaping new consumer habits, laid the foundations for the ubiquity of plastic we experience today. The fundamental reason for plastic's ubiquity lies in its unique, almost ideal for industrial civilization, set of properties that not only solved existing technological challenges, but also gave rise to new markets, entire industries, and, ultimately, a new way of life. These properties created a synergistic effect, making the abandonment of plastic tantamount to abandoning the very foundations of the modern economy and everyday life. The cornerstone was unprecedented economic efficiency. The raw material base for plastics is essentially waste or low-calorie fractions of petroleum refining, naphtha, gas oil, and associated gases. Their cost is negligible compared to the cost of the finished product. The polymerization process itself is catalytic, high speed, and allows for colossal scale production, ensuring low unit costs. This low cost is systemic. It makes plastic the most affordable structural material in history, which, in turn, reduces the cost of absolutely everything made from it, from food packaging to electronics housings. It was economics that made the concept of disposability possible, transforming it from a wasteful privilege into a mass norm. The second property is an extreme balance of lightness and strength. The density of polymers is close to that of water, making them weightless compared to metal, glass, or ceramics. This property has revolutionized global logistics. Shipping goods in plastic containers or with plastic components requires an order of magnitude less energy. Wherever weight was an issue, in aviation, automotive, and space exploration, plastic has become the key to increased efficiency. At the same time, many polymers exhibit high impact strength, wear resistance, and resistance to cyclic loading, making them suitable for critical applications. The third group of properties is chemical and biological passivity. Polymer materials are inert. They do not react with most aggressive environments, do not oxidize in air, do not conduct electricity, and are impermeable to water and gases. This passivity has solved many problems simultaneously. In the food industry, plastic barrier packaging has dramatically increased the shelf life of products, eliminating spoilage and reducing losses. In medicine, the sterility of disposable syringes, catheters, and infusion sets has revolutionized the field, reducing hospital-acquired infections to a minimum. In construction, plastic pipes and insulation have put an end to corrosion and decay. However, this same inertness, while an advantage in operation, turns into an environmental curse, as it makes polymers virtually eternal in natural conditions. The fourth, and perhaps most powerful property, is absolute technological flexibility. Plastic is amorphous and thermoplastic. It can be endlessly remelted and molded into any shape using injection molding, extrusion, and blow molding. In a single cycle lasting seconds, it is possible to create a product of incredible complexity, from a microscopic chip housing to a car body. The material's properties can be programmed at the molecular level. By adding plasticizers, flexible vinyl is produced. By adding foaming agents, lightweight polystyrene foam is created. By creating composites with fiberglass or carbon fiber, materials stronger than steel are created. This flexibility has allowed plastic to displace, rather than replace, other materials, creating fundamentally new products: disposable contact lenses, flexible endoprostheses, ultra-light wind turbines, and composite aircraft wings. Finally, plastic possessed powerful psychological and cultural capital. In the post-war era, it represented scientific progress, hygiene, democracy, and the future. Its smooth, bright, easy-to-clean surfaces were associated with cleanliness and control over a chaotic, dirty nature. This narrative was skillfully nurtured by marketing, making plastic synonymous with modernity. Thus, plastic became not just a material, but a kind of universal solution, a technological key that opened the doors to mass consumption, the globalization of trade, a revolution in healthcare, and new engineering heights. The problem is that this key proved disposable, and the locks it opened can no longer be closed without rebuilding the entire edifice of modern civilization. The fundamental flaw of the plastic age is that the physical and chemical properties that elevated the material to the pinnacle of progress have proven incompatible with the planet's ecological imperatives, creating a system in which human benefits are transformed into systemic threats to the biosphere. This conflict manifests itself on several levels. The first and most obvious is the conflict between technological durability and the ecological decomposition time. Polymer chains designed to resist degradation are not recognized by natural decomposers, bacteria, and fungi as a food source. The environmental degradation process is not biological, but physical and photochemical. Ultraviolet radiation from the sun causes the molecular bonds to slowly loosen, making plastic brittle. Wind, water, and friction then break it down into ever smaller fragments. However, complete mineralization into simple compounds, carbon dioxide and water, does not occur. Instead, microplastics, particles less than 5 millimeters in size, and nanoplastics, which can penetrate cell membranes, are formed. Thus, plastic does not disappear, but rather transforms into a new, more hazardous state, polluting all environments, from agricultural soils, where sewage sludge is deposited, to the atmosphere, where microparticles are carried by the wind over continental distances. Its durability, useful in a pipeline or a car body, becomes an eternal curse in the environment. The second fundamental conflict is between the economics of low production costs and the real cost of the life cycle. The low cost of virgin plastic is an illusion achieved through the externalization of costs. The price of petrochemical feedstocks does not include the cost of collecting, sorting, recycling, or safely disposing of the product after use, nor the damage caused to ecosystems and human health. When a plastic bag worth pennies ends up in the ocean and kills a sea turtle or clogs the filters of a desalination plant, society pays a much higher price. The throwaway economy based on such cheap material makes recycling economically unviable against the backdrop of the production of new, inexpensive virgin plastic. The system is locked into a vicious cycle where producing new is always more profitable than managing waste from old. The third conflict is between technological versatility and recycling practicality. The ability to create complex composites, multi-layer films, and materials with specific additives has given rise to a huge variety of plastics, only a small fraction of which are effectively recycled. For example, a transparent PET bottle is easily recycled, but the same bottle coated with a colored PVC label or a layer of adhesive presents a challenge. Flexible packaging, pillows, bags, consisting of layers of different polymers, is unsuitable for mechanical recycling. This complexity makes collection and sorting systems incredibly expensive, and the quality of the secondary raw materials low, condemning them to downcycling, recycling into less valuable products. The fourth conflict is between passive inertness and active toxicity. Although the polymer matrix is relatively stable, the additives that give plastic its desired properties, plasticizers, phthalates, flame retardants, and heat stabilizers based on heavy metals, lead, cadmium, are not chemically bound to it and can leach into the environment. In animals and humans, some of these substances are endocrine disruptors, affecting reproductive function and development. Furthermore, microplastic particles in the environment act as sorbents, attracting and concentrating persistent organic pollutants, such as pesticides and polychlorinated biphenyls, on their surface. When consumed by plankton, they trigger a process of bioaccumulation, resulting in increasing toxin concentrations at each subsequent trophic level. Thus, plastic has become the material embodiment of the gap between short-term economic logic and long-term environmental sustainability. Its properties, ideal for the narrow purpose of serving humanity under controlled conditions, have proven catastrophic when scaled up to a planetary phenomenon. The crisis is not simply a garbage problem, but a systemic failure in which civilization's key material has no safe exit from its life cycle, creating an ever-growing debt to nature that will ultimately exact a toll in the form of disrupted ecosystem services, biodiversity loss, and impacts on human health. It's impossible to simply escape plastic, because it has ceased to be a standalone material and has become a systemic integrator of modern civilization. Its elusive threads are woven into economic models, urban infrastructure, supply chains, and the daily rituals of billions of people. This dependence is threefold: economic, technological, and behavioral, and each level feeds into the others, creating a vicious cycle that is extremely difficult to break. At the economic level, this dependence is structural and tied to massive investments and business models. The petrochemical industry, faced with the prospect of declining fuel demand due to the transition to green energy, has relied on plastics as a new engine of growth. Building new cracking units and polymer plants requires billions of dollars in investment, which must be recouped through decades of stable sales. This capacity creates an oversupply of virgin plastic, which becomes even cheaper, making investments in collecting and recycling complex waste economically pointless. Global trade is built on logistics, where the lightness and affordability of plastic packaging and pallets minimize costs. Replacing this system with heavier or more expensive ones, glass, metal, reusable containers, will immediately hit profits and retail prices, provoking resistance from both corporations and cost-sensitive consumers. Technological and infrastructural dependencies run even deeper. Plastic isn't just used, it defines the design and functionality of entire industries. In medicine, it's the foundation of modern hospital hygiene. Disposable syringes, catheters, surgical drapes, and test tubes aren't just a convenience. They require strict protocols that eliminate the risk of infection. Replacing them will require the development and certification of fundamentally new sterilization and logistics systems for reusable instruments. In the food industry, plastic barrier packaging with a modified atmosphere is what allows Chilean strawberries to reach the shelves of Moscow supermarkets and yogurt to last for months. Without it, supply chains for fresh and perishable foods will become shorter, and food waste will increase. In cities, plastic pipes for water supply and sewerage, polymer insulation materials in homes, and composite materials in public transport form the physical framework of infrastructure. Their dismantling and replacement with similar products is comparable in scale to a new industrialization. The most persistent level is the socio-behavioral one. Over several generations, plastic has shaped a culture of hygienic, disposable consumption, throwing away packaging, drinking coffee on the go from a disposable cup, using a disposable bag. These actions have become unconscious, almost reflexive. They save the most valuable thing in the modern world: time. Reusable alternatives require planning, carrying a bag, mug, container, effort, washing and drying, and often don't fit into the rhythm of urban life. Furthermore, plastic has created psychological comfort. A sealed product seems safer than a loose one. A new disposable item is cleaner. Marketing has exploited this feeling for decades, associating plastic with progress and health concerns. Breaking these deeply ingrained habits is more difficult than changing technology. Finally, there's institutional paralysis. Even with public demand for change, waste management systems in most countries are unprepared for the transition. They represent a conglomerate of outdated regulations, short-term contracts, and vested interests, where waste collection and disposal are often more profitable than recycling. The lack of uniform standards for plastic labeling, pricing for secondary raw materials, and efficient technologies for processing complex composites makes any attempts to create a circular economy fragmented and ineffective. Thus, plastic dependence is a classic problem of the commons on a planetary scale. Each participant in the system, producer, consumer, regulator, acts rationally in their own short-term interests, but the overall result leads to long-term systemic catastrophe. Escaping this trap requires not incremental improvements, but a synchronized revision of the rules of the game at all levels simultaneously. From global taxes on virgin plastic and product redesign, to infrastructure investments, and a shift in cultural norms. This is a task comparable in complexity to another industrial revolution, but this time, it is conscious and aimed at survival. Finding a way out of the plastic impasse requires abandoning the illusion that the problem can be solved by a single, universal action. Whether it's banning plastic bags, inventing biodegradable plastic, or installing reverse vending machines en masse, The crisis is systemic, meaning solutions must be systemic, addressing multiple levels simultaneously, from global regulation and economic redesign to transforming infrastructure and cultural codes. The first and fundamental level is a review of economic incentives and the legislative framework. It is necessary to make the production of virgin plastic from fossil-based feedstocks less economically viable than the use of recycled and alternative materials. This could include introducing extended producer responsibility globally, whereby the company that launches a product is financially and organizationally responsible for its entire life cycle, including collection and disposal. Another tool is a carbon footprint and non-renewable resource tax, which would make cheaper virgin plastic more expensive. At the international level, a legally binding agreement to combat plastic pollution is needed, similar to the Paris Climate Agreement, which would establish global targets for reducing the production of single-use plastics and standards for their recycling. The second level is innovation in the design of materials and systems. This isn't about creating another miracle material, but rather embracing eco-design principles. This means designing products with disassembly and recycling in mind, eliminating multi-layer and composite materials, and using single materials, easily removable labels, and adhesives. The development of chemical recycling, capable of breaking down complex plastics into their original monomers to produce new plastic of the same quality, is critically important. But it should complement, not replace, production reductions. At the same time, support is needed for truly sustainable alternative systems, such as the development of a reusable packaging infrastructure, with deposit-based systems for packaging beverages, food, and household chemicals. The third level is the transformation of resource management infrastructure. It is necessary to implement a system of separate waste collection everywhere, invest in modern sorting and recycling facilities, and also, and this is key, develop waste prevention infrastructure. This includes networks of filling stations for household chemicals and bulk food products, repair and rental services, and industrial symbioses, where waste from one industry becomes raw material for another. Without this infrastructure, even conscious consumers will be forced to revert to disposable solutions. The fourth, and perhaps most challenging level, is changing social norms and consumer culture. Here, simply raising awareness of environmental issues is not enough. Creating a new fashion and convenience around sustainable behavior is required. This could involve promoting reusable solutions through design and status. For example, a stylish thermos mug as an accessory, integrating reward systems for eco-friendly behavior into loyalty programs, and changing urban planning policies to promote walkable access to local stores and services, which reduces the need for packaging for transportation. But it's also crucial to understand that so-called biodegradable plastics are not a panacea. Most such materials decompose only under industrial composting conditions at high temperatures and humidity, conditions not found in landfills or oceans. In nature, they often behave like regular plastic, only fragmenting into microplastics. Their use is only justified in narrow niches, such as for collective bio-waste, and should not become an excuse for perpetuating a throwaway culture.